The call for reinforcements. The galaxy was changing. War was spreading from one star system to another, and even the strongest alien empires were struggling to keep their borders safe. One of these empires, the Varnak Alliance, sent a call across the stars. They needed help. A brutal enemy, the Dravok, had pushed deep into their space, and their own armies were not enough. They didn't ask for peacekeepers. They didn't ask for diplomats. They asked for warriors. They had heard whispers, rumors of a species from a distant blue planet. A race born on a world so deadly, even its animals were dangerous. A species that had fought countless wars, not for survival, but because they refused to kneel. That species was called humanity. Varnak generals, desperate and proud, expected a few thousand soldiers. Some tough mercenaries, maybe a few elite squads, but what they got was far beyond that. The message was simple. We will respond. Prepare a landing zone. On the barren moon of Gravis 4, the Varnak commanders waited. Their scanners picked up the incoming fleet, faster than expected, larger than expected. Dozens of ships, each one black as night and moving with the grace of predators. No flags, no signals, just silence. Then the humans landed. Their boots struck the dust like thunder. Tall, armored, calm, not shouting, not posing. Just quiet, efficient, ready. The Varnak soldiers who had fought in 100 battles felt something strange watching them. It wasn't fear, it was awe. One Varnak officer, a veteran with scars from battles across 3 systems, stepped forward and asked the human leader, "How many of you came?" The human's reply was cold and clear. "Enough." The briefing began. Maps lit up. Plans were laid out. The Varnak commanders explained their strategy, their defenses, their losses. They pointed out the enemy's strongholds and described their brutal weapons. The human commander just listened, then looked at the maps again. "Understood," he said. "But your enemy does not need warriors," the human added. "It needs an ending." The Varnak generals didn't understand. Not yet. The first human strike came at night. The Dravok base on Gravis Prime was well defended, with anti-air guns, shield domes, and biosensor walls. Nothing had breached it in years, but the humans didn't breach it. They erased it. A single flash from orbit, a silent weapon unknown to the Varnak, turned the base into a glowing crater. No alarms, no warnings. One second it existed, the next it didn't. The Varnak watched the footage in shock. "Where's the battle?" one of them asked. "There was none," said the human beside him. In less than a day, 3 more Dravok outposts vanished. Human dropships landed on the outskirts of the remaining enemy zones, but they didn't storm the walls. Instead, they released machines, silent walkers with glowing eyes and no fear. They moved like shadows, cut through armor, hacked into systems, and left nothing alive. The Dravok didn't know how to fight them. This wasn't war. This wasn't what the Varnak had imagined. This was something else, and it was just the beginning. The silence after fire. The battlefield was quiet, not the kind of quiet that comes after peace. This was the silence of fear. The Dravok, once loud and proud, now whispered in hidden bunkers. They had never seen anything like the humans. No warnings, no broadcasts, no mercy. Word spread fast across the galaxy. Earth didn't send warriors. Earth sent something worse. On the surface of Gravis 5, another Varnak forward base tracked human movements. Dozens of black-clad troops moved with perfect rhythm. No one spoke unless needed. Every action had purpose. The Varnak commander named Bren, a soldier with 30 years of experience, stood beside a human officer. "You don't fight like others," Bren said. "No fear, no hesitation. You don't even celebrate your victories." The human looked at him and answered, "We didn't come to celebrate. We came to finish." And they did. Human machines flew through the clouds, stealth drones, so quiet they passed without sound. They carried high-tech payloads that broke through shielded bunkers and melted reinforced walls. The Varnak had never seen weapons that precise, that clean, that final. The Dravok couldn't hide. Not in caves, not in cities, not even in space. One by one, their hidden supply lines went dark. Human codebreakers broke into Dravok communications and used them against them. Sometimes the humans didn't even fire a shot. They turned enemy ships against their own fleets. Bren saw it happen. A Dravok cruiser launched missiles at a human vessel. The humans responded with a signal, just one small data burst. The cruiser stopped, turned, and destroyed its own fleet. How? Bren asked. The human only replied, "We understand systems. All systems." The galaxy began to panic. Messages flooded into the Varnak High Council. Who are these humans? Where did they get such weapons? Why do they fight without limits? And the most fearful message of all, can anyone stop them? Meanwhile, the Dravok leaders called for a ceasefire. They offered surrender. They sent messages filled with apologies and promises. The humans said nothing. They didn't want peace. They wanted an end. Back at the Gravis warbase, Bren met with the lead human strategist. "The war is over," he said. "The Dravok are retreating. We can make peace now." The human shook his head. "Not yet." "But why?" Bren asked. "They've surrendered." The human showed him a map. "They'll come back. Not today. Not this year. But one cycle they will. We don't want victory." He tapped the map. "We want certainty." That night, the humans unleashed a weapon no one had ever seen before. A massive orbital platform appeared above the last Dravok world. It wasn't a ship. It was a machine built to end civilizations. The Varnak watched as the skies over the Dravok homeworld turned red. No nuclear fire, no messy destruction, just a complete shutdown of power, of technology, of every signal and machine. The planet went dark. Every Dravok system was erased. Cities powered down. Ships fell from orbit. Weapons locked and shut. And still, the humans didn't land. They just watched. The Varnak stared in horror and awe. "They don't just win wars," Bren whispered. "They erase threats." One younger Varnak officer spoke what everyone was thinking. Maybe we shouldn't have called them, and in that moment, the Varnak realized something chilling. They hadn't just invited warriors. They had opened the door to something far more dangerous, something human. The warning, too late. The stars looked the same, but everything had changed. The Dravok were silent now. Their empire, once powerful and aggressive, had become a graveyard. No ships left port, no messages escaped, no resistance remained. And still, the humans watched. They did not celebrate. They did not leave. The Varnak High Council, shaken by what they had witnessed, held an emergency session. They spoke behind closed doors, away from human ears. Some called for honoring the humans as heroes. Others were more cautious. "Is this what we wanted?" asked one counselor. "We asked for help, but did we invite destruction instead?" There was silence. Then came the most important question of all. What if they turn on us next? Back on Gravis 5, Commander Bren looked out at the human base. It had grown. The humans had built more than just bunkers. They built silos, platforms, control towers, not temporary structures. These were meant to stay. He walked with his assistant, a young soldier named Rallo. "Why are they still here?" Rallo asked. "The war is over," Bren replied. "I don't think they came just for this war." That evening, a transport ship arrived. Not military, civilian. Inside were scientists, engineers, builders, all human. They didn't carry weapons. They carried machines for construction, for mining, for farming. But that's what made it worse. The humans weren't preparing to leave. They were settling in. Meanwhile, in a distant sector of space, a neutral race known as the Alari sent a transmission to Earth. It was respectful, diplomatic. It asked for a conversation. The reply from Earth was simple and short. Observe. Do not interfere. No threat, but no warmth either. The Alari backed away, quietly. Across the galaxy, leaders began whispering to each other in fear. The humans were not just a Deathworld species. They were something new, something no one had seen before. Their warriors were not conquerors. They were cleaners. They removed threats, then stayed. On Gravis 5, Bren requested a meeting with the human commander. He was granted a short audience. The human's face was calm, eyes cold. I must ask, Bren said. How long do you plan to remain here? The human replied. As long as necessary. Bren frowned. And who decides what is necessary? The human's answer came without pause. We do. That single sentence traveled across the Varnak ranks like wildfire. It wasn't arrogance. It was certainty. Humans didn't follow others. They made the rules. Quietly, efficiently, without asking. Later that night, a Varnak scouting vessel tried to fly over the new human zone on Gravis 5. It didn't even cross. The boundary line before it vanished from radar. No explosion, no signal, just gone. A warning was broadcast moments later. This space is now restricted. The council met again. Some demanded answers, others demanded distance. A few even spoke the unthinkable, preparing for war against Earth. But Bren knew better. He had seen what the humans could do, not just with weapons, but with silence. With planning. With precision, war against them wouldn't be war. It would be extinction. The next day, another Varnak officer asked Bren a quiet question. Did we win this war? Bren stared at the sky, watching the human ships move like silent shadows. His answer came slowly. No, he said, we survived it. No way back. The galaxy had always followed rules, treaties, alliances, warnings. There was a system. Even during war, there were limits. But humanity had entered the galaxy like a storm with no borders, no warning, no return. And now, there was no going back. On Gravis 5, the human zone continued to grow. It started with silos and towers. Now there were power grids, underground tunnels, and what looked like atmospheric stabilizers. They're changing the planet, Rallo whispered. As he watched from a distance, Bren stood beside him, eyes narrowed. Not just the planet, they're changing the balance. Some Varnak officers wanted to ask the humans to leave. Others wanted to build stronger weapons just in case. A few even started planning in secret, hoping to find a weakness. But there was none. A Varnak probe tried to scan the human warship in orbit. It didn't return. Instead, the humans sent a message. Do not test us. No threat. Just truth. Then came a signal from a nearby system, Yarna 3. It had been untouched by the war, far from the front lines. But now it was gone. Literally gone. Not bombed, not destroyed. Gone. Satellites showed it just disappeared. No heat, no explosion, no fragments. One moment it was there. The next, empty space. Rumors spread like wildfire. Did the humans do that? Why would they erase a whole system? Were they sending a message? Bren demanded answers. He sent a coded request to the human commander. A meeting was granted. Once again, he entered the cold, clean command tent where the air felt heavier than outside. I need to know, Bren said. Did your people remove Yarna 3? The human looked at him, emotionless. Yes. Just like that. Why? Bren asked, almost whispering. There was a facility there, the human said. Old Dravok weapons. Dangerous. We made sure it would never be used again. Bren shook his head. You could have just destroyed it. The human stood up. We don't leave messes. Elsewhere in quiet corners of the galaxy, old enemies began to join hands. Former rival species, once bitter foes, now saw a common danger: Earth. Meetings were held in secret, plans were drawn, but fear always sat in the room like a shadow. How? Do you fight something that doesn't stop? How do you destroy what doesn't fear death? Can you reason with them? Back on Gravis 5, a young Varnak scout named Darrow tried to sneak into human territory to gather data. He never returned. Instead, a small drone floated over the Varnak base carrying a single item: Darrow's dog tag. No blood, no message, just the tag, polished clean. The humans were not attacking, but their silence spoke louder than any weapon. That night, Bren gathered his top officers. "We are not their allies," he said. "We are not their enemies either, but we are in the way." "What do we do?" Rallo asked. Bren's face was hard. "We adapt, or we vanish." One by one, the officers nodded. They finally understood. The humans hadn't just come to help in a war. That war was just a reason. A test. Now they were here, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Black Protocol. The Varnak were not weak. They had ruled regions of space for centuries. They had fought pirate clans, repelled insectoid invasions, and stood firm against the old machine empires. But standing next to humanity, even the proudest Varnak soldier felt small, and now they were scared. After the silent destruction of Yarna 3, a secret meeting was held deep inside a secure Varnak station. It was called Black Protocol, a contingency designed only for galactic-level threats. It had never been used before, until now. The leaders didn't speak in open tones. They spoke in codes, behind jamming fields, hiding even from their own AI systems. "We cannot fight them directly," one admiral said. "They control information. They see what we plan before we finish planning it." Another commander stood up. "Then we must find a way to control the situation, or delay it, before they take more." The fear was clear. The humans were not expanding for war. They were expanding for permanence. On Gravis 5, the human base had transformed into a fortress. No walls were visible, but their scanners showed layers of defense systems buried under the ground and hidden in orbit: auto turrets, anti-ship silos, tracking towers. "They didn't just come to fight," Bren told Rallo. "They came to stay." And then it happened. The humans declared Gravis 5 a neutral control zone, not under Varnak rule, not under Earth, just controlled. No explanation, no debate. Varnak ships were told to stay clear of orbit. Ground troops had to report movement near the human sectors, and without warning, the humans started inviting other species, quietly: small races, outcasts, traders, miners, refugees. The ones the Varnak and other empires ignored or stepped on. The humans welcomed them. They gave them land, gave them technology, protection, and they were loyal in return. Bren saw the pattern. "They're not conquering," he said. "They're reshaping." The rest of the galaxy finally noticed. At the border of the Eldar Dominion, a scout station spotted a human stealth ship scanning one of their moons. On the far edges of the Kuroth Empire, a rogue Earth drone disabled a listening post and left behind a message: "Monitor your weapons. This is your only warning." The Kuroth called it a threat, but no one responded. No one wanted to call Earth's bluff, because what came next might be worse. Back on Gravis 5, Bren sat alone in his chamber, reading the latest reports. 27 Varnak officers had disappeared in the last 3 weeks, each one linked to projects that could someday challenge human power. None of their bodies were found. Their personal logs simply ended. In place of investigations, Earth sent one message: certain fires must be put out, early. Bren closed the report. Then he stood and stared out at the stars. "We thought they were warriors," he whispered. Rallo, standing nearby, asked, "Then what are they?" Bren turned, his voice low and serious. "Humans aren't warriors," he said. "They're a force of nature. The spark of resistance, The Varnak Council had reached a breaking point. For months they watched Earth expand its grip, quietly, efficiently, without raising a flag or firing a shot. But the results were impossible to ignore. Earth now controlled 3 strategic sectors. Trade routes had shifted. Smaller species pledged loyalty not out of fear, but out of gratitude. Earth's way was not dominance through war. It was control, through certainty, and the galaxy was crumbling under it. In a hidden location on the icy moon of Valine, leaders of 7 major species gathered in secret. They represented the Kuroth, the Eldar Dominion, the Varnak, and others once powerful. "We cannot let them decide the future," said one. "They act like gods," said another. "No," the Varnak delegate replied. "They act like cleaners." And so a plan was born. It was called Project Ember, a united resistance. Not a war, not yet, but a spark. The goal: slow Earth down, disrupt their systems, break their perfect silence. Meanwhile, on Gravis 5, things were changing. The humans had built a new tower, a sleek black structure that touched the clouds. No one knew what it did, only that it constantly hummed and pulsed. Bren watched it from the Varnak side of the valley. "They're not just building," he said. "They're preparing for something." Rallo approached, holding a datapad. "Sir, we found something strange. One of our supply transports vanished, then reappeared. No damage, no explanation, but all the crew had changed." "Changed? How?" Bren asked. They were quieter, nervous, refused to talk. One of them kept repeating the same phrase. Rallo handed him the pad. The recording played. "We saw the other side. There's no way to stop it." Bren's grip tightened. "This is more than war," he whispered. "It's influence." That night, the Resistance acted. A fleet of cloaked ships from multiple empires jumped into orbit above Gravis 5. Their mission was simple: disable the Black Tower, just long enough to break the system. To show the galaxy that Earth wasn't invincible, they fired without warning. 7 direct hits, explosions lit the sky. Dust filled the air, the tower vanished into smoke, and for a moment, it looked like victory. Then the clouds parted. The tower was still standing, not a single scratch. The explosions had never touched it, because what they hit was a projection, a decoy. The real tower was elsewhere, deeper, hidden, untouched, and in response, the humans didn't fire back. They didn't send ships. They sent a message to every government involved in the attack. "This was your test. You failed. Next time there will be no warning." The Resistance Alliance collapsed within days. The Kuroth pulled out first, fearing total destruction. The Eldar Dominion pretended they were never involved. The Varnak remained quiet, but the fear spread. On Gravis 5, Bren met the human commander once more. "You knew they'd try something," he said. "Yes," the human replied. "We hoped they wouldn't, but we were ready." Bren stepped forward. "What are you really building on this world?" The human looked at him calmly. "A reset," he answered. "For what comes next?" In the distance, the Black Tower pulsed. Again, bright, steady, alive. Not a weapon, a signal. Something was coming, and Earth was building the answer. What comes next? The sky above Gravis 5 was no longer filled with stars. It was filled with human ships. They hovered in low orbit like silent watchers, not to attack, not to invade, but to observe and act if needed. Earth's message had been sent and understood. Resistance was pointless. Inside the Varnak war chamber, Bren sat alone, staring at the last report. The galaxy was quiet now, too quiet, not because peace had arrived, but because fear had taken its place. Across the galaxy, things had changed. The Kuroth dismantled half their navy. The Eldar Dominion stopped all outer expansion. The minor species turned toward Earth for guidance, for protection, for permission, and Earth never raised its voice. It simply existed, with presence, with control, and with terrifying certainty. Back on Gravis 5, The mysterious black tower finally activated. A beam of pale blue light shot into the sky, but it wasn't an attack. It was a signal, sent far beyond the local sectors. It pulsed 3 times. Then silence. No one knew where it went, or who it was meant for. Only the humans did. Later, Bren met the human commander one last time. They stood on the cliff's edge overlooking the glowing tower. "You've won," Bren said. "There's no war left. No enemy. What now?" "The May." Human looked at the sky. "We're not here to win," he replied. "We're here to prepare." "Prepare for what?" Bren asked. The human finally turned to him, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes. Not pride, not threat, but weight. "You called us to stop one enemy," he said. "But we've seen others out there." He pointed toward the stars beyond the galaxy. "Things that don't talk, that don't conquer. They consume, and they're coming." Bren felt. A chill crawled down his spine. "Then the tower," he whispered. The human nodded. "It's the first line. A warning system, a shield, a beacon. We didn't come to dominate your galaxy." He paused. "We came to save it." And just like that, the truth was clear. Earth hadn't sent warriors. They hadn't brought destruction out of hate. They brought it out of necessity, because something worse was on the way, and only a species born from a death world, a species that refused to kneel, refused to stop, was willing to stand in the path of that coming darkness. In the end, they didn't just send warriors, they sent humanity, and humanity was the storm before the real war.